last Friday, this office filed a lawsuit against the governor, alleging that the $172 million, give or take a little, withholds from programs such as Parents as Teachers, community colleges, children's services, the judiciary, the legislature, math and science tutoring, Missouri higher education, Bright Flight scholarships, domestic violence grants, Medicaid, Alzheimer's grants, and others. The withholdings that have been done had been made, one, without any accounting data to support it. It's my duty, of course, to ensure that there's accounting data to support financial decisions of public officials, and two, that it appeared to violate the Missouri Constitution on withholdings, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So I said when I issued the press release on that, now that this is in court, I really don't want to talk about it anymore, and would only say something further if my positions were unfairly characterized. And I had planned pretty much to let it go. It's always been my belief you let the courts decide these things, and we were willing to live with whatever the court, and we will live with whatever the court decides. We'll make our arguments. We'll make his arguments. The court will resolve the constitutional and accounting issues that we presented, and we would move forward, and we were prepared. We feel we're right, but we're also seeking a declaratory judgment, which means we want the court to tell us who's right. That's really what the purpose was, and I plan to leave it at that. But unfortunately today, there was a gross, basically libelous mischaracterization of my viewpoint in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, so I felt like in accordance with my statement last Friday, it was my duty to get up and clarify the situation. What I thought I would do is first of all walk through what my position actually is and hope that it will be accurately reported on, and then maybe present some thoughts for you all as to why this editorial might have been written the way it was based on some history that's gone on with the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and me when I was in Afghanistan, serving the country, fighting crime, corruption, and terrorism, and today. So what I thought I'd do first of all is clarify. And I want to point out what the article says here, because this is why I'm calling the press conference. It says, what is Schweich's argument for the lawsuit? Quote, in a nutshell, the governor is wrong to cut the auditor's budget to pay for rebuilding the devastation caused by the job hunt tornado. That's what they're saying. Then it says next, that's right. Mr. Schweich wants the court and the public to believe his budget is more important than helping a city rebuild from one of the worst natural disasters in our state's history. That is their characterization of my argument. Now let me go over what the truth is, so you can all decide whether that's an accurate characterization or whether the lawsuit actually seeks to do something different. We conduct an audit of the governor's office regularly, depending on the election cycle, every 2 or 4 years. And we started that audit a few weeks ago. And it's a regular audit that we do of his fiscal accountability and the usual things we look at when we do audits. One of the first things that the career auditors noted, these are people who've served for 20 or 30 years, was the $172 million withholds, and they asked the governor's office for data supporting the $172 million. There's a Supreme Court decision and statutory authority that we establish the system of accountability, and we report on the accountability of public officials. The first thing that they learned was that there was no data supporting the $172 million. They could not produce a single spreadsheet, projection, actual revenue data, estimated cost of job, and they asked, can you give us some support for how did you get to $172 million? And unprecedented in our office's history, there was nothing, absolutely nothing to support it. So that caused some alarm in the office, and they brought it to my attention. The other issue we look at, now when we look at public officials, we look at two things. One, whether they're acting within their legal authority to disperse resources, because we look at resources. And then two, if they're acting within their authority, was it done in a legal, accountable, and transparent manner? Well, the first thing, without any backup of $172 million, there was no legal, accountable, or transparent way to determine where this number came from or if it was accurate, so we were concerned about that. We also look at the law. In this case, the withholdings were made prior to the start of the fiscal year. That's unprecedented as far as we know. And the Constitution says you can only withhold when actual revenues fall short of projections. That's pretty clear and unambiguous. You have to have actual revenue data before you can make withholdings. And then they have to be presumably reasonable and supported by adequate accounting data so that the numbers are correct.